The amount of healing and spiritual work required to get there might seem endless. Doing healing work can also be very painful in the short and perhaps medium term. However, it's not like there's only a pot of gold at the very end of the road, and the healing path until then is only pain. Even well before reaching the point of inner peace, your life and mental well-being will probably improve dramatically if you do your healing work and spiritual work. People on Earth often seem to either want to make huge, dramatic changes immediately in their life or on the planet, or they feel that it's pointless and they don't change anything. Well, it may not be possible to make huge, dramatic, productive changes instantly. However, if you consistently work towards improving things a little bit, then over time you can make a great difference indeed. For example, for 1 week, it can suffice to introduce a small thing in your routine that takes just 10 minutes in total. And then after that week, or perhaps after a few weeks, you can see if you feel ready to introduce one more small thing. People tend to overestimate how much they can change immediately, and underestimate how much they can change by consistently making little changes. Next up, I'll share a spiritual practice that I think is very useful. Section: Observe, feel, and only then decide if you want to go into the thoughts and emotions just arise. You can't control those things arising in you. However, when a so-called negative thought or emotion arises, most people instantly go into the thought. So for example, if the thought is that this person or this group of people is bad, then often people immediately start thinking about all the ways in which this person or this group is indeed bad. Or people might try to find rational arguments to debunk the thought, but that is still going into the thought. You are still responding to a thought with thoughts. If you want to get more thoughts zooming around in your head, then respond to thoughts with thoughts. If you don't want to get more thoughts zooming around in your head, then I recommend the following. If a so-called negative emotion or thought arises in you, first observe the thought or emotion and feel it fully. And only once that's done do I suggest that you decide if you want to indeed go into the thought and start thinking along those lines or start rationally evaluating the thought. Also, if you want to take action, I suggest only doing that after you have observed the thought or feeling and felt it fully. For example, suppose that a thought arises in you, I am not good enough, or that person is bad. I don't recommend immediately agreeing with that, or immediately trying to disprove the statement, or immediately labeling the thought or emotion itself as bad. Instead, just observe it and feel the corresponding emotions fully. If feeling those emotions fully takes a long time, then that's how long it takes. If you feel the urge to cry or to move your body or to make sounds, do so if you are in a safe environment. That is part of the healing process. If after a certain period you notice another feeling coming up, it's fine to feel that. That can be a part of the healing process as well. Only once you've observed and felt the emotions do I suggest deciding if you indeed want to think about whether you are not good enough, or think about whether that person is bad. If you want to think about those topics, that's fine, but then it's a conscious choice. If you don't, that's fine too, then you can just let it go and move on with your life. If it's helpful, you can visualize a cloud drifting by, or something gently being swept away by the river. You may also find that once you've fully felt the corresponding emotions, the thought is often fine with leaving. So, when a so-called negative thought or emotion arises, observe it, feel it fully, and only then decide if you want to go into the thought. If you're trying to observe or to feel and you find yourself having a lot of thoughts, bring your attention to how you're feeling. Don't focus on your thoughts, focus on your feelings. The point here isn't trying to determine what's true via your feelings. Listening to your emotions is a quite bad way to determine what is true or not. The point here is that feeling your feelings will lead to emotional healing. After all, what you're feeling, you're healing. And that emotional healing, in turn, will mean that your mind feels the need to produce fewer thoughts. Yes, it can be hard when so-called negative thoughts or emotions come up to consistently observe, feel, and only then decide if you want to go into the thought. However, no one is expecting you to do this always, or do this flawlessly. I am just saying that this is a useful practice and no one starts out by being immediately perfect at a practice. Instead, you get better at a practice by practicing it. So, that's what I recommend: observe, feel, and only then decide if you want to go into the thought. To make things a bit more clear, let's look at a few things that Earth humans often do instead. The stereotypical Earth male approach is to skip the feel step, and to be primarily concerned with whether thoughts are correct or not, and with what actions are or aren't appropriate. It would be healthier for Earth men to feel more, but then again, men and women often lose respect for or attraction to Earth men who cry. So unfortunately it's understandable that men don't feel safe to feel their emotions. And again, it's not just other men who should be more tolerant of men expressing emotional distress, it's also women who should be more tolerant of that. Conversely, often a woman, or a man, says things with the intention to vent or to release emotions, and often a man immediately jumps to the realm of saying whether those thoughts are rationally correct or not, and saying which actions would be helpful. However, it's helpful to first work through the emotions. Once that's done, the woman is often perfectly capable of making the correct decision herself. This is the age-old "I don't need advice, I need you to listen to me" annoyance that women have with men. So what women tend to do better than men is to not skip over emotions. However, the mistake that women, and some men, sometimes make is that they spend too little time sitting down without external distractions and really feeling their emotions. Instead they talk about emotions. However, talking about feeling sad isn't enough, you also need to sit down and truly feel the sadness. What I suggest is, observe, feel, and only then decide if you want to go into the thought. Men, and some women, often skip over the feel step entirely. Women, and some men, sometimes skip over the feel step in a subtle way, by not actually feeling their emotions and instead going straight to talking about their feelings. Talking about emotions is fine, but that is the third go into the thought step. So ideally people feel their emotions first, and only then decide if they want to talk about their emotions, if they want to take action, etc. It's true that sometimes conversation can be used to more deeply feel your emotions, but I still suggest the order: feel your emotions first, and only then talk about them. After all, most people you talk to will immediately try to cheer you up, or tell you to disagree with the negative thought, etc., and then you're once again in the realm of going into the thought. Also, by talking to someone, you're necessarily having to translate the feeling into words, and then people often drift away from feeling their actual sadness and enter the realm of rationally discussing sadness. So if you're able to first feel your emotions by yourself, without conversation, do so. Although if you're unable to feel your feelings, then talking about them with someone, and trying to feel them as deeply as possible as you can during the conversation, may be your only option. And of course, if that's your only option, then it's fine to do so. Small children actually do what is optimal for emotional health, until Earth adults train them out of it. Namely, when small children are sad, they simply start crying. They don't outright skip over their emotions, or use talking as a way to subtly skip over the feeling step. Instead, when sadness arises in them, they immediately and deeply feel that sadness. And that is what is optimal for emotional health. Section: You never know what you had until it's gone. For this last section of the message, I want to comment that some of you may feel that this current situation you are living in isn't optimal for you. This may or may not be true. Even if you are living in a situation that's not optimal for you, however, there are probably still lessons that you can learn here. I get that it's painful, but right here, right now is an incredible opportunity to learn those lessons. Beware of the spiritual ego trap, where the spiritual person says, "I have no more lessons to learn, I'm just here to help others," or "I'm just here to do something once the new 5D Earth has materialized." Well, it may be true that you're here to help others, or are here to do something once the 5D Earth is here. However, if you actually had no more lessons to learn, you would be at peace right now, even on Earth. If you're not at peace, then probably there are still lessons to be learned, even if you are in a suboptimal situation. In the future, you might have a blissful life, and you might actually be wishing that you were able to experience just a few more days of earth life when it was at its harshest. After all, beautiful gems of self-improvement and soul growth can be found right here, right now. Pressure creates diamonds. So I wouldn't take this time for granted. I wouldn't recommend spending this incredibly valuable time on hopes and dreams and living in the future. Instead, I would plant your feet in the soil as it is right here, right now. Is being on earth right now hard? Yes, it is very hard, and often very painful. However, you don't need to be perfect. So long as you do your best with your spiritual practice, that is enough. If so-called negative thoughts or emotions arise, well, you know what to do. This current difficult time really is coming to an end, and you never know what you had until it's gone. With all the love from my soul, your star brother, Ashtar for Era of Light.